While the United States has been bombing Iran for 12 or more consecutive nights, Iran's foreign minister spent Friday at a resort town on the shores of Lake Issyk-Kul in Kyrgyzstan, signed 25 bilateral cooperation agreements with regional powers, held what he described as detailed meetings with both the Russian and Chinese foreign ministers, and called on the entire Shanghai Cooperation Organization to take a firm stand against American unilateralism. Iran is losing the military exchange. U.S. strikes hit 12 or more consecutive nights. Oil has hit $100 a barrel. The Strait of Hormuz remains partially closed. It is gaining something else. Separately, Trump attended the rescheduled White House Correspondents Dinner last night, delivered a rambling hour-long speech that CNN described as bombing, made fat jokes about journalists, and quipped about a third presidential term while wearing a Trump 2028 hat, and spent part of his speech praising the CEO of Paramount Skydance, whose $110 billion merger with Warner Bros. Discovery the Trump administration approved, days after Trump and that same CEO attended a UFC fight together at the White House. The merger is now in court. 12 state attorneys general and the Writers Guild of America are challenging it. This morning, Paramount agreed to delay the merger's closing. Let's take all three. Start with Kyrgyzstan, because what happened there yesterday is more geopolitically significant than it has been covered. The SCO Council of Foreign Ministers meeting was held in Cholpon-Ata, a resort town on the northern shore of Lake Issyk-Kul in Kyrgyzstan, on Friday, July 24th. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization is the multilateral security and economic bloc that now includes Russia, China, India, Pakistan, Iran, Belarus, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan as full members, with a growing roster of observer states and dialogue partners. Iran joined as a full member in 2023. At this week's meeting, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araqchi was not a marginal participant. He was, by every account in available sourcing, one of the meeting's central figures. Al Monitor's confirmed reporting. Iran signed 25 cooperation agreements at the conclusion of the meeting, deepening its ties with the SCO bloc across trade, transit, energy, and economic cooperation. Araqchi's bilateral meetings on the sidelines included 6 separate foreign ministers: Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Pakistan, Egypt, Uzbekistan, and China. He specifically described the meetings with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov as detailed, a word that in diplomatic language means substantive policy coordination, not ceremonial exchange. Press TV confirmed his statement afterward. Consultations with Russia and China remain ongoing and continuous. Tehran regularly coordinates with Moscow and Beijing whenever there is an opportunity. What Araqchi said publicly to journalists following the meeting is worth quoting directly. The Tribune reported, citing ANI and Press TV. The principal barrier between Tehran and Washington is not a lack of communication pathways, but rather the United States' persistent reliance on bullying and coercion. To the assembled SCO foreign ministers themselves, Araqchi called on the bloc to take a firm stand against unilateralism and to become a leading voice for multilateralism and respect for state sovereignty. He described the SCO as a progressive organization comprising major countries in the region and said it should confront the unilateral policies of the United States, the West, and Western institutions which seek to impose their hegemonic policies on international relations. These are not off-the-cuff remarks to a journalist. They are a foreign minister's formal address to a multilateral body that collectively represents more than half the world's population and a significant fraction of its oil, gas, and mineral reserves. Araqchi was asking the SCO to become an institutional counterweight to U.S. pressure on Iran. The question is whether that ask is finding purchase, and the fact that he signed 25 agreements at the same meeting, deepening Iran's economic integration with the bloc, might change the dynamics. Suggests that, at minimum, the economic relationship is moving in the direction he's working toward. Here's the strategic picture this creates, stated plainly. The U.S. launched military strikes on Iran beginning February 28, 2026, with the stated objective of addressing Iran's nuclear program and preventing it from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Over the subsequent 5 months, those strikes have been consistent and escalating. 12 or more consecutive nights, hitting air defenses, transport infrastructure, bridges, commercial vessels, and, controversially, a water pumping station where at least one civilian worker was killed. What those strikes have also done, as a documented byproduct, is drive Iran into the arms of Russia and China in a way that no amount of diplomacy from those countries could have manufactured. Iran has now signed 25 cooperation agreements with SCO member states, at a time when it needs alternative trading partners most. Wang Yi and Lavrov, the top diplomats of the two countries that most directly complicate U.S. global strategic aims, have now held detailed policy coordination meetings with their Iranian counterpart as a direct consequence of Iran's war with the U.S. The SCO's next Heads of State Summit is scheduled for Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, August 31st to September 1st. Iran's FM used this week's foreign ministers' meeting as preparation for that larger gathering, at which Iran will be a full member, making its case against American policy to an audience that collectively controls the overland trade routes, the energy supply, and the economic relationships that the U.S. was trying to pressure into non-existence. The war may not be achieving its nuclear objective. Araghchi leaving Kyrgyzstan, with 25 signed agreements and detailed coordination with the Russian and Chinese foreign ministers, is evidence that it is achieving the opposite of its geopolitical objective. Now the dinner, because it is genuinely worth covering, but not quite for the reasons the White House wanted. The White House Correspondents Association Dinner has been an annual Washington institution since 1921. It is the one night per year when the press corps that covers the presidency and the president who is covered sit in the same room and theoretically engage in mutual ribbing. Presidents have long used the event to demonstrate that they can take a joke while landing some of their own. Obama was genuinely funny. George W. Bush was disarmingly self-deprecating. Clinton held his own. Trump, attending the event for the first time as president on Friday night, bombed. The event had been rescheduled from April, when the original dinner was disrupted by a gunman who charged a security checkpoint at the venue and fired a shotgun before being subdued by the Secret Service. Friday's event was held at the Waldorf Astoria in Washington, with a smaller ballroom than April's planned venue at the Hilton. Trump's press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, had previewed his speech as unifying yet vicious, and serious yet hilarious, all at the same time. CNN's assessment of what was delivered was considerably less generous. Trump bombed at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. NPR confirmed the speech ran for 1 hour, covering a range that included praising some journalists, taking personal shots at others by name, making jokes about public figures' weight and intellect, and quipping about a third presidential term. He arrived wearing a Trump 2028 hat, which is its own statement about both his electoral ambitions and his sense of the evening's tone. CNN's live coverage tracked the room's reaction in real time. Trump's jokes have begun to fall flat, as his tone has grown much more serious and bitter. Delivering what he characterized as a joke involving a senator being asked by his wife to come up the stairs and make love, he received what CNN described as a hushed reaction from the audience of journalists. Trump's own response, "Does anybody get that one? I thought that was actually pretty good." NPR described the targets of Trump's humor: late-night hosts Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel, Representative Ilhan Omar, California Governor Gavin Newsom, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, and Trump's own speechwriters, whose jokes he sometimes criticized even as he delivered them. Criticizing your own speechwriters during the delivery of their material is its own category of observational comedy, unintentional but observable. Trump also used the speech to tout his friendly relationship with David Ellison, CEO of Paramount Skydance. Trump told the crowd that Ellison had promised to rename next year's dinner the Trump White House Correspondents' Dinner. "He told me that, and I like that very much. We're going to change the name of it, okay?" The specific joke requires specific context to fully land. Ellison and Trump were seen together at a UFC fight Trump hosted on the White House South Lawn in June. Days after that event, the Trump administration approved the Paramount Skydance merger with Warner Bros. Discovery. The merger is now in federal court, with a dozen state attorneys general and the Writers Guild of America challenging it. The president publicly praised the CEO of a company whose regulatory treatment is being challenged at a dinner that is literally organized by the journalists whose networks Ellison's company controls. CNN, which is a Warner Bros. Discovery property, covered the dinner. Paramount CBS News also covered the dinner. CNN's analytical conclusion from the evening is worth naming, because it's more interesting than most of the jokes. Maybe Trump's speech unwittingly underscored the theme of the dinner: America's robust First Amendment protections. In some other countries, mocking the leader's dismal performance on live TV and all across the internet is a criminal offense. But in the US, it's the norm. The reporters in that room who covered the speech honestly, the analysts who called it a bomb, the social media accounts that posted the flat joke moments, all of them did so without legal consequence. In the Russia and Iran that Aragti was working to align with yesterday, that would not have been possible. That distinction is real, and it is not nothing. Because the story that was a footnote in last night's speech has specific and significant stakes for who controls major American media. Paramount Skydance agreed Friday to delay the closing of its merger with Warner Bros. Discovery until next year, or until the merits of a lawsuit challenging the deal are resolved, whichever comes first. Deadline, The Wrap, and CNN all confirmed the agreement. Deadline's headline: Paramount Skydance agrees to hold off on Warner Bros. Merger. The Wrap: Paramount faces drawn-out battle with state AGs. They saw the writing on the wall. Deadline separately noted: opponents cheer delay. Stocks slide. The challengers are a coalition of a dozen state attorneys general and the Writers Guild of America. The WGA's involvement is particularly significant in context. This is the same union that went on a 148-day strike against Hollywood studios in 2023, which fundamentally reshaped the entertainment industry's relationship with writers in a way the studios had not anticipated. The WGA surviving, coming out of that strike with meaningful gains, and then immediately mounting a legal challenge to the largest media consolidation in years. That's a union that has developed specific institutional expertise in fighting major industry consolidation. 12 state attorneys general represent a significant coalition. The legal theory behind their challenge will emerge from the lawsuit's progression, but the framework is likely antitrust, that combining Paramount, which includes CBS, MTV, Nickelodeon, Paramount Pictures, and BET, with Warner Bros. Discovery, which includes CNN, HBO, Max, TNT, TBS, and DC Studios, would create a media entity with outsized control over specific content categories, advertising markets, or streaming competition in ways that harm consumers or creators. The Trump administration had already approved the merger, which is why Paramount had been moving toward closing. The regulatory approval process under an administration whose president has now publicly praised the CEO of one of the merger parties at a nationally televised event is now the subject of the lawsuit's scrutiny. Whether the sequence of events, White House UFC party with Ellison in June, merger approval shortly after, Ellison praised by name at WHCA dinner in July, constitutes evidence of improper regulatory treatment is a legal question the courts will determine. What can be noted without legal conclusion is that the sequence is documented, publicly visible, and the subject of active litigation by 12 states and a major union. The stocks sliding on the delay news tell you that the market had expected the approval to hold and the merger to close. A court-ordered delay means the deal is in materially greater uncertainty than the market had priced in. Paramount's content portfolio, its relationship with its creative workforce, and the broader question of who controls how much of American television and film output are all now subjects of a legal process that could run well into 2027. The WGA and the state AGs have bought themselves the time to make their case. 3 stories today. Iran's foreign minister sat in a Kyrgyz resort, built diplomatic and economic relationships with Russia, China, Pakistan, and 6 other nations, signed 25 cooperation agreements, and called on the world to stand against American policy on a day the U.S. conducted its 12th or more consecutive night of strikes on Iranian targets. Trump bombed at the rescheduled White House Correspondents Dinner, made fat jokes, praised the CEO of a media company, the administration had just approved for a merger and joked about running in 2028 while wearing a hat that said the same thing. And that CEO's merger is now delayed in court, challenged by 12 states, and the union whose writers he needs to produce the content his combined company would own. The SCO summit tells you that military campaigns conducted without a coherent diplomatic strategy create diplomatic gifts for the other side. The WHCA dinner tells you that the gap between what press secretaries preview and what presidents deliver is sometimes the most revealing thing about the evening. The Paramount merger tells you that regulatory decisions made between White House UFC parties and WHCA dinner shoutouts are going to get scrutinized. Eventually, by people whose job is specifically to scrutinize them. All three of these are, in different registers, stories about who has power and how they use it, while everyone else is watching something else.